In a previous video, I discussed your most enticing pull of Rugby World Cup 2023. So quite personal, although obviously based on certain more maybe decisive objective factors. In this video, I want to talk about the most competitive pull at Rugby World Cup 2023 because I don't think those are the same. In my previous video, my most enticing pull was Pool B. I have the pulls down here on another mobile device off rugbyworldcup.com, and so Pool B was the most enticing given the protagonists, Scotland, Ireland, South Africa and Tonga and Romania, and so that was my most enticing. I'm a Kiwi, you probably realise that. Pool A is not the most enticing. Yes, obviously the All Blacks are there, and so that has that factor. However, when I looked at it a couple of weeks ago, I identified pools C and D as the most competitive, and that only increased this past weekend when Fiji took out England at Twickenham, and where Samoa pushed Ireland and France. And so I think there's a decent argument for saying that as the pool number rises, or as the letter moves from A through to D, then the competitiveness increases. So if we look at, say, Pool C, I have it on my device here and I'll read it out so I get it correct. It is Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia and Portugal. Now, Australia have talked about having a pretty decent draw. Well, I think Fiji have shown that they're no easy beats, and Wales, well, they can give a decent showing of themselves. So Georgia, we don't see too much of Georgia, but they tend to play quite a straightforward, maybe masculine style of rugby, and I don't mean that in any derogatory sense, but just even we see them coming through in the recent age group tournament, often men who have some girth and some stature and some physical capacity, and so they like contact. So Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia, and then Portugal. Haven't seen really any of Portugal, although I have one connection who's talked about them playing a nice brand of rugby. So you don't necessarily expect too much from Portugal. And competitiveness, is not necessarily related to the quality of certain teams, but the overall nature and maybe proximity. And you could make an argument for three of those teams, maybe even the fourth team, is offering more, maybe not consistently, but again in those clashes. So that's Pool C. But I think Pool D, maybe even more so. I think there are four teams there that on paper and on recent performances could test each other. And that's England, Japan, Argentina, Samoa, and Chile. Now, Chile haven't seen play a game of rugby, so they're a bit of an unknown quantity. However, the other four, now you would have said, England have got a good draw there, but England of recent months, weeks, years, hasn't been England of, say, 2019 Rugby World Cup. And so Japan, well, they probably haven't had as much stronger run, but they do have that previous experience. Argentina, well, they've got a lot of European experience. Samoa, well, they've just shown what they can do and have some talent that are returning, or not returning, but included in their squad from outside who played for other nations. So if I'm to say the most competitive pool of Rugby World Cup 2023, if I was to say that it's going to be Pool D, then if not for the last matter of weeks and months, then it could have been, well, one of those decisions, one of those statements, one of those videos to get effect. But we've seen what these sides can do. And because of the close proximity, Pool D could be the pool of death, or the pool of life, depending on which way you look at it. As a neutral, or as one who will always probably have a soft spot for Western Samoa that became Manu Samoa, then, and our Southern Hemisphere compatriots are there as well. And who doesn't like seeing England getting tipped up? Well, except of course for the English, but hey, it's part of our colonial history to want England to get taken down a notch or two. So your competitive, or the competitive, most competitive pull of 2023. What say you? I am Johnny King.